There you go.
So we're live. Okay.
Hey, everybody. It's Ben and Ashley here. We're going live today. We're back on grid.
Yep. Back on grid, getting in the swing of things. Ben's been getting our garden here
Getting it back in order.
in order, and I've just been unpacking and laundry and getting everything in order as well.
Yeah.
So,
Up at the property where we're farming at, there's not the best connection. So
no,
we can't really do lives up there, but
we couldn't at all.
here we can. We're on grid. We're in a city, so we're able to get pretty good internet, at least good enough internet to where we can stream some live videos. So today,
Yes.
that's what we decided to do.
That's what we wanted to do when we were back. So we're taking advantage of our good internet, and we're going to do lives. And if you guys have seen, we've done a lot of discussions after the Medical Medium podcast, and we decided let's try doing it live, opposed to like our edited videos for those types of discussions. So this is what we're doing. We're going to discuss the neurological podcast today.
Yeah.
So
sorry, we're kind of behind on all these podcasts here. We've listened to them all ourselves, but we haven't had a chance to discuss them amongst ourselves and try to jot down some notes and talk to you guys about everything.
Yeah,
so
we've got some people joining us. We're on Instagram Live and YouTube Live. We've got Green Beans and Christine. Hi, guys.
Hey.
Welcome. Okay, should we get started?
Yeah, let's do it.
Perfect. So this is the podcast on neurological symptoms that Anthony discusses. And we're just going to dive in.
Yeah, so you guys saw that we had done one on brain fog, and that was our last video. And podcast that he did after that was on the neurological system, right? And this is kind of perfect for discussion because this is something that I totally dealt with the whole time I was sick, and I still deal with some of these neurological symptoms today.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt like this podcast was great because he went into detail on all the different nerves and how symptoms are connected to the different nerves in the body. So like when I was sick, I was experiencing the dizziness, the vertigo, the feeling like I was on a boat, the weakness of limbs. I had the worst heart palpitations, tingles, numbness in hands and feet, restless leg syndrome. I had buzzing or ringing in the ear. My digestion was like way off. I was being told I had IBS when I just couldn't process any food properly.
Mm-hmm.
Everything would just come right out the other end. And and I had anxiety, and when it was really bad, I was having panic attacks every 15 minutes. So
yeah, it was really bad.
It was a pretty bad experience, and bad brain fog. I had migraines till I was throwing up, nausea, blurred vision. Tremors was something that I've been actually dealing with since high school, and come to find out that it is a neurological thing.
Yeah.
And burning skin, trembling hands, feeling heavy, tired, fatigued, insomnia, couldn't sleep at night. I'd wake up and the whole bed would be wet from sweats, and it felt like, it was kind of like a struggle every morning to just get out of bed and get on through my day.
Yeah.
And how in Anthony, the beginning of his podcast, he talks about, it would leave you to where you were on your hands and your knees begging God for help. That was me, like every single day, multiple times a day. I was on my hands and knees praying that I'd get through this and that the pain would go away. And it was like I was going from doctor to doctor. They do blood work, CT scans, X-rays, and this all occurred when I was in Mexico. And so they thought maybe
The start of all your symptoms. Yeah.
they thought maybe that I had fallen and got a concussion. So they were checking me for that. I was going to all these specialists. In the Bay Area here, we have some of the best hospitals. You know, I was going to Stanford. I was going to UCSF. I was at Kaiser. I probably went through a dozen specialists. I went through a dozen doctors, and they all said different things. But at the end of the day, I was just left with no answers, just kind of a label. You got parasites, you got IBS, you got Crohn's disease, anxiety, chronic fatigue syndrome, leaky gut. You know, even one doctor wanted to test me for Lyme disease because all my symptoms matched kind of that label, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't until we found medical medium and realized that these symptoms and the conditions were all related to the neurological system.
Yeah. And you even went to a neurologist, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they did all these different like tests on you and said, oh, you're fine. You know, you're perfectly fine. Nothing's wrong with you. But come to find out, all of his symptoms.
I was stage 4 Epstein-Barr virus, and that's what was inflaming my central vagus nerve.
Yeah.
That was what was causing the dizziness, the vertigo, the feeling like I was on a boat, the weakness of limbs, the heart palpitations. That was caused by one nerve in particular, which is the vagus nerve.
Yeah. So that's Ben's experience, right? So he just had neurological symptoms up the wazoo.
Yeah, they had given me antidepressants, so I was taking I think it was Klonopin or something like that, and they had me on that. I was taking like 2 or 3 of those a day, and
to get through like your panic attacks.
And I was even taking them when I was had just started medical medium, but then eventually once I got on medical medium, started to cleanse the body. I started to feel like my old self again, and I didn't need them, so I was able to get off them.
Yeah. So let's talk about, so in Anthony's podcast, he goes through, there's all these different nerves in our body, right? So let's talk about those, and we'll go through the different symptoms that you can feel and when those nerves get inflamed. So the first one that Ben brought up is the vagus nerve, and that runs from your brain down through your neck, through your chest, down to your stomach, and then the bottom of it just sits at the tip of your stomach.
Yeah, and so a lot of the symptoms I was dealing with were related to that nerve, and some of the other symptoms would be like tightness of chest, hard to breathe, tightness in your throat, like hard to swallow stuff, dizziness, feeling like you're on the boat, the vertigo, that's what I was dealing with, tics and spasms. I was dealing with that when I'd go to sleep. I'd just like my body would start shaking and stuff. It was kind of weird. And then the weakness of limbs, feeling like you felt like really heavy all the time, the tingles and numbness, anxiety, panic attacks, you know, the heart palpitations. So all these symptoms are related to the vagus nerve. And that's the nerve that Ashley just told you where it ran. And so that was where a majority of my symptoms were coming from.
Yeah. And being inflamed from the Epstein-Barr virus.
Yeah,
precisely right.
The Epstein-Barr virus would eat and feed off the things that I was putting in my body, and then it would poop. And it was a lot of it was going on in the liver, so that's where like the party's at, right? So you have all these heavy metals, you have all these toxins going on in your liver, you've got all these viruses, and a lot of the viruses live in the liver, and then they feed, and then they poop, and that poop creates a neurotoxin, which then goes into your bloodstream and then makes its way to these different nerves. And typically these viruses, they're going to go after weakened nerves, right? So if you have a former injury or something like that, that's where the neurological symptoms are going to be hit first.
Totally. So here's an example. let's say you're a female, and you start getting hot flashes, you're getting night sweats, you're getting the heart palpitations, dizziness, hair loss, anxiety, and you go to your doctor and they tell you you are going through premenopause if you're young, or you're starting menopause if you're maybe middle-aged or older. But really, all of those symptoms are caused by the Epstein-Barr virus, which is causing all of those symptoms, which are also related to the neurological symptom or system.
Yep. And then this same nerve, the central vagus nerve, also causes like fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, vertigo, Meniere's disease, and even asthma. And that's just a few of them. I mean, the list goes on.
Yeah.
And what I found interesting is when I was really sick, I had a lot of issues in my stomach. So I was going towards my stomach. So that's why like the parasite thing was a thing, because I had stomach problems. And so the doctor took me down this rabbit hole of parasites because I was in Mexico and then I came back and all this stuff started. So they thought, oh, he must have got a parasite, when it was really just my stomach. But your stomach has nothing to do with all of those symptoms. The IBS, the poor digestion, you have thousands of these nerves coming from different places, you know, like your vagus nerve or your phrenic nerve or your spine, and they're all connected to the intestinal tract and the stomach and the colon. So when it appears you have digestive issues, it's actually neurological issues. So then you'll get like symptoms like nausea and, you know, food not digesting properly, or weakness from chewing, or you feel like you have to go to the bathroom, but you can't go, you know, and those are just a few. But in your mind, you think it's your stomach when it's actually all these nerves you have going on in your body.
Yeah, like who would know, right?
I wouldn't have thought it. Yeah.
That's
So
crazy.
yeah, like the tingles, numbness, the restless legs, the buzzing, ringing in the ear, that's, you know, caused by the vagus nerve and the phrenic nerve and the trigeminal nerve and the sciatic nerve. So if you're dealing with these symptoms and you're like, well, how is this all connected? Well, there you go. It's the vagus nerve, the phrenic nerve, the trigeminal, sciatic nerve. Those are the root cause of all of these symptoms you're dealing with.
Yeah. So you mentioned the phrenic nerve. That nerve runs from your brain and it goes down your neck and then to each side of your chest. So when that gets inflamed, symptoms that you guys would feel would be tingles and numbness, like Ben said, but it would be like in your shoulders, your arms, your fingers, they might hurt or feel numb. Tics and spasms in your arms and your hands. You might lose the feelings in your hands or your arms. Cramping between your shoulder blades, upper back, or you might have some really sharp, serious pain. And this nerve can also cause insomnia.
Yeah, so the reason I wasn't sleeping was that I was dealing with this nerve in particular, and it was causing inflammation when I was trying to sleep.
Yeah, definitely. Another nerve would be the trigeminal nerve, and this one is all up here. So this is through your jaw, which is then connected through your facial area. The nerves are on the side of your head, back of your head, and then nerves all in your mouth. So symptoms of this nerve being inflamed would be jaw pain, pain in your teeth, burning gums, electrical shocks in the side of your head or your face, jaw clenching, pain on your head and your face, and then any popping noises that you might hear in your head or in your face. So, I mean, I know we both have felt that before, especially through this whole healing process. We've
well, we were dealing, just when we were up north, one morning we both were dealing with teeth sensitivity. When you're like, consuming something that's cold, and your teeth and your gums are like super sensitive to that coldness, and it kind of sends a shock through your whole facial region, and that is one of those things that causes that.
Yeah. It was weird because there was a day where we both were really sensitive, like our teeth were really sensitive the same day. But I know, like, my teeth have been really sensitive this whole healing process to cold things. But it was weird that day or two we were both really feeling sensitive.
It was also like 30 degrees in the morning. Yeah, it was frosting out.
Nothing to do with it.
It was super cold.
Yeah.
So that was definitely a big part of it.
Yeah. Let me just make sure we're still good on YouTube. Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Okay, you want to go to the next nerve?
Yeah. Okay. So this is a nerve that I dealt with big time when we were up north. Early in the season, we were building lots of beds. There was like 19 beds we put together, 50-foot beds,
humongous.
A lot of work. And the soil underneath, is basically rock. So we had to do wheelbarrow loads of sand and forest floor and compost and bring it out to the field. A lot of work. So I had some sciatic nerve problems. And that's another nerve, and that runs from your lower back down to your legs. This is kind of a tricky one because you could feel pain in your feet when it's really coming from your back, right? Or your shin hurts, or you got pain in your thighs or your butt, or your lower back, or you got burning in your legs, or like your feet or your back or your butt, vibrations in the legs and feet, numbness in the toes. You experience some of that? I'm
experiencing that right now, actually. But yeah, you put a ton of work in. You were working super hard on those loads, so it was just your body wasn't used to it. It was starting to get inflamed. The sciatic nerve symptom was coming up for you. It was pretty bad.
And so the virus was basically attacking that nerve
because it was inflamed.
Because it was weak.
Yeah.
Because I had been working those nerves when I was doing all this work. So the virus naturally was drawn to that nerve, because when your body has a problem, it sends off this hormone, and that hormone, the virus knows that hormone. So when that hormone goes off in the body, the virus gravitates towards that hormone. It's basically telling your body that this nerve is damaged and needs repair.
Yeah.
And so this is one that causes like restless leg syndrome, pins and needles in like your leg and feet. It's it's a really tricky one, and it messes with a lot of people. We hear this from a lot of people. So
yeah, definitely. So the next nerve would be the vestibular nerve, and this is in your ears, in the labyrinth of your inner ear. And symptoms of that would be popping sounds, humming vibrations, or even ringing in the ears. So this nerve can cause the tinnitus, the ringing in the ears that people have.
And everybody has tinnitus. I mean, just working at the farmers markets and stuff and talking to people, I mean, that was a common complaint. Oh, yeah, I get the ringing in the ear. Oh, yeah, I get the ringing in the ear. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's something that a lot of people deal with, is the ringing in the ear.
No, I mean, I even have it. So
me too.
Yeah. And then the next nerve would be the, I hope I'm saying this right. I can't say it.
Pudendal.
Thank you. Pudendal nerve, and this runs down your lower spine to the genital area. So this can be a very painful nerve. Because I mean, like, even just trying to walk when this nerve is inflamed could be painful.
Yeah, it's like you'll get like lower abdomen pain in the groin, feel like you have to urinate all the time, but like you can't get the pee out type thing.
Right.
I've experienced that one. I know
painful when that nerve is inflamed.
Yeah. Twitching and like spasms around the bladder, or like you feel like the genital area like itches all the time.
Yeah, so that's like a nerve thing, and other people might think that it's something else, but it could be nerve related.
Yeah, so we're hoping, like, the reason we're going through all of this stuff with you is I found it very interesting to kind of tie the nerve to where the virus is kind of lingering, right?
Yeah.
So certain nerves cause different symptoms and
Mm-hmm.
can affect people in different ways.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. It's good to know the different like nerve points and the symptoms that you could be experiencing from it. There's another one. So the other one would be the tibial nerve, and this runs down your legs. Symptoms of when this is inflamed would be buzzing, humming vibrations in your legs, having the restless legs with this one as well, pain in your heels. I know I've felt that before.
Yeah, too.
The Achilles heel, toes, and ankles.
Yeah. And then one thing that I thought was crazy was that there's fatigue, right? But there's, when you think of fatigue, you think of like fatigue being caused from like adrenaline or adrenals being overworked. You don't think that you can get fatigue from the neurological system, but you can. You can experience brain fog, feeling heavy, or just super fatigued all the time, and it might have nothing to do with your adrenals.
Right.
It could be fatigue caused from the neurological system, so that neurological system, when you get this inflammation, that is what is causing, the fatigue.
Yeah.
So say you're like going to the doctor, right? And you're complaining about these symptoms. You're like, hey, doc, having all this discomfort, and I'm having all this pain. And the doctor says, okay, I'm going to run some blood tests on you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I'm going to check you to see if you're dealing with any inflammation. Well, so they run the C-reactive protein test, they run the ANA test, the MTHFR gene mutation test, and they find inflammation, right? Okay, you're inflamed, you got some inflammation going on. Okay, well where do I have this inflammation? Well, they don't know. They don't know where the inflammation is coming from. They don't even know what is causing the inflammation in the first place. What they'll do is they'll tag a bacteria to it.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll say, okay, you have inflammation and it's being caused by this bacteria. When really it's not the bacteria causing the inflammation, it's the virus causing the inflammation and the heavy metals.
When it's neurological related, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So then they decide, okay, well, based on your symptoms, this seems like tinnitus or vertigo or trigeminal neuralgia or chronic fatigue syndrome or Lyme disease or lupus or fibromyalgia or an autoimmune disease or multiple sclerosis, ALS, Parkinson's. All these things are they're just labels. They're just labels for your symptoms. There's no cure, no answer to fix this. The best they're going to give you in conventional doctor world is some pharmaceuticals to add to an already toxic liver.
It's super important to understand that your body is not attacking itself. Those of you that listen to Anthony in Medical Meeting, you know that your body is not attacking itself. It's actually working for you, working really hard to fight those pathogens, and it's the pathogens that are turning against you. Your body is not, is working for you so much. And unfortunately, conventional doctors and even, naturopaths and all those other types of alternative doctors, thank you. They're getting their information from research and science. And a lot of us know that that is typically paid for based off of a theory, and they want that research to go a certain way. So the outcome is gonna be what they want it to be. So just know that.
It's kind of kind of like we're part of that science experiment.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
A little bit.
Something really interesting was that during the Spanish flu, they used garlic as a remedy to heal it. And now today, as Anthony said in the podcast, is, first you hear garlic's good, then you hear garlic's bad. Garlic's good, no, don't have garlic, it's bad for you. And right now you're hearing a lot that garlic is not good for you, outside of the medical medium information. Garlic is so good for you, you guys. If you don't know, it is stronger than an antibiotic. It's way stronger than like a thing of penicillin. So it can really fight off some viruses. So bring raw garlic into your daily life. I mean, we have it daily. We'll usually crush up some raw garlic on our salads if you don't have a salad for lunch. So we'll usually do salads for lunch. If we don't have a salad for lunch, then we make sure to get it in our dinner because that is antiviral and so good for you.
You can even try to eat a clove by itself, but it could be rough on your stomach.
Yeah, but you don't have to put yourself through that pain.
Okay.
It's good on a salad. You won't even taste it.
Yeah.
So go for the garlic. You're not going to get the negative side effects that you would get with an antibiotic. So it's antiviral, and it also removes heavy metals from your body.
Yeah. Both are the things that we're talking about right here, because if you're dealing with like a weakened, sensitive nervous system, it's caused by viruses, toxic heavy metals, and the viruses taking advantage of those previously injured areas where the nerves are weakened. Yeah. And like I said earlier, there's a hormone, and when the nerve gets injured, it sends off that hormone to the body, and that's what tells the body, hey, my nerve is injured, it needs repair. And the virus, it detects that hormone and rushes right over, it latches itself onto that damaged nerve. Yeah. And our nerves are like similar to a string of yarn. So imagine like a string of yarn with little root hairs hanging off it. Well, those root hairs, they pop off. And when they pop off, that's where the virus attaches itself to. And this allows the virus to sit there and feed, and as it feeds, it creates a neurotoxin, and that's its poop. And that poop of the virus is what causes that inflammation and all that discomfort in that area. And so that's why, like, someone who has an injury and they can't heal it, right, for years, it's because the pathogens in your body keep going at it, right? And it just can't heal. So, like, you got in a car accident, like, even before I met you years ago, and you had a back injury forever, right? So that... And I still deal with it. You still deal with it, but I mean, you're slowly healing it. But that's a lot of times why people have these injuries and they can't heal them, because things are attacking it in your body. Yep. Yeah. So it causes the inflammation, and it blows up and swells, and that's what's creating these symptoms that we're talking about right now. That's why these symptoms are so important, to tie the symptoms to the nerve, because then you know where that injury is taking place. Yeah. So as Ben said, these viruses, they go to the bathroom and then they create these neurotoxins, and then that neurotoxin is traveling through your bloodstream, and then it's hitting all of those nerves that we talked about, and creating that inflammation. This can also create short circuits in the neurotransmitters in your brain, and also inflame the tissues in your brain. And this kind of goes back to our brain fog episode, or Anthony's brain fog episode, but we talked about it in our last video, or 2 videos ago, about brain fog and how the pathogens cause the brain fog. Yeah, all of those neurotoxins, they get saturated into all of your tissues and all of your fat cells, and this goes for heavy metals as well, because when a heavy metal is in your body, that heavy metal, it rusts, right? Imagine, like, where they find gold? You know, if gold is in a stream, it goes down the stream and then it settles in the clay. And that's because the metals, that gold is heavy and it sinks.
Yeah.
And that's what goes on in our bodies. So when we get exposed to these toxic heavy metals, they end up in our bodies and then they sink and then they sit there and they rust, they oxidate. And so the same thing happens when the virus goes poop. So you've got the heavy metal oxidation and you've got the virus poop that is creating this inflammation, and it's creating these symptoms that you're dealing with. When you take this to the doctor and you tell the doctor this, they don't know what causes the inflammation in the first place, so they're not going to have an answer for you. All they're going to do is tag a label to what you're dealing with, and not be able to really cure it.
Yeah. So everyone has viruses in their body, right?
Yeah, everybody's got viruses going on. There's not anybody out there that doesn't. You know, viruses, they're passed down from generation to generation. So you might be sitting there saying, no, I haven't exposed myself to any sort of virus. I know I'm good, and this is not affecting me. Well, you're not, because pathogens get passed from generation to generation to generation, and you don't know if your great grandfather was exposed to a virus. Remember, these viruses, they were farmed in labs. Okay, in the early 1900s, they started farming viruses in private classified labs. And then they just somehow walked right out of the lab, and now everybody out there has viruses. Well,
yeah,
you know, how does that happen, right? Well, if you listen to this podcast at the very end, Anthony said pathogens infected by the evil pin prick. Okay, so what?
I think you guys know what that is.
Okay, so like the prick of blood, like the pin, you know, the needle goes into the blood. Well,
something goes in your body. So this is how pathogens are, how they walk out of the labs.
They get released on us through medical treatments. So, you know, if you're like, well, I don't have any virus, well, there's different things that you've probably gotten put in your body without even knowing it through that pinprick.
And you thought you were protecting your body, but unfortunately, it was putting pathogens in your body.
Yep. So let's talk about some of the viruses.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, top inflammation causers would be the Epstein-Barr virus, and there's over 60 varieties of this virus. Shingles, there are 30 varieties. There's not just one, there's over 30. There's tons of varieties of herpes simplex 1 and 2. There's the cytomegalovirus, and then there's multiple varieties of HHV6 through HHV16. And then those all just continue to mutate and become stronger. So those numbers are just going to continue to grow. How do they become stronger? Well, they love to eat toxic heavy metals, and they get stronger. Sorry, I'm losing my place.
Yeah, so the viruses, they eat the toxic heavy metals.
Yes.
And when they consume those toxic heavy metals, the poop that comes out, that neurotoxin, that poop is stronger than poop if they just eat like an egg, process the egg, and then poop that out. The poop from the heavy metals is a lot more toxic to the body. So
there we go.
All this ends up where? In the bloodstream. And in the bloodstream is where it becomes more toxic, and you become more allergenic to those neurotoxins in particular, which then when the doctor is running that blood work, you're going to trigger positive inflammations because of this neurotoxin that's now in your bloodstream. And on top of that, we talked about the toxic heavy metals and how when they consume those metals, that neurotoxin is toxic. But what about the neurotoxin that's created from the metals itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
That gets saturated into the fat cells, right? And then where does that leave those toxic heavy metals? You're giving the virus a food source.
Because it's stuck there.
Because it's stuck there, it can't move. So another reason that we need to lower these fats, because when you have all these fat cells and these toxic metals, the neurotoxin being stored in those fat cells, that virus is going to live there forever. You know, we need to starve these things.
Yeah, because it has a food source. So you've got to get rid of that.
Yep. And so, like, if in our brain fog one, if you guys watched that brain fog video that we did and if you're on Instagram now watching us, go check out our YouTube page, because on our YouTube page, we've done a lot of these videos, these talks we're doing right now. We recorded them when we were up at the property, and now we're here, we're live. We can do these live for you guys rather than,
because we have internet.
Yeah, we were off grid up there, so it was a little tougher to do lives. But go check those videos out, and especially the brain fog one, because it's
a good one.
It relates to a lot of the stuff we're talking about right here. So
yeah,
when those neurotoxins get saturated into the tissues, they get deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into those tissues, right? So maybe you're dealing with brain fog today, but maybe that brain fog turns into dementia 20 years from now. And 20 years later, maybe you're dealing with ALS, or maybe you're dealing with Parkinson's.
Right.
You know,
because you didn't remove the metals.
Yep.
And they just sat there and continued to create more issues.
Yep.
So there's other reasons that the viruses can become stronger besides the heavy metals, and that is if you keep troublemaker foods in your diet, and if you keep triggers around. So Cleanse to Heal book, page 37, lists all the troublemaker foods. Ben's got the book here.
Cleanse to Heal. I'm going to open 37.
Awesome book. Highly recommend you guys get this book if you don't have it. But there's a list of troublemaker foods, and it lists out exactly why you should remove them.
So he lists them all right here. And there's like 3 pages. I think it goes to page 40 or something. And then it talks about.
It's like in depth.
Yeah.
So check that out. We will also talk about more about this. I think we're going to do a live tomorrow.
Yeah, you want to?
I think so.
Okay. Cool.
Well, because there's like a 2-parter to this whole neurological thing, and we want to talk about how to basically fix it.
Yeah, so this one was more like talking about the neurological system and
all the
like
symptoms.
all the nerves, all the symptoms, and then talking about what causes your neurological system, neurological problems.
Yeah.
And then this one we're talking about, this one you want to do tomorrow, we're going to do one, and we'll talk about how to heal your neurological system.
We'll talk about the troublemaker foods to remove, but in depth is going to be in that book. And then also, what's on page 60?
Oh, that's the troublemaker foods. So there's 2. Okay. Page 37 is like your troublemaker, like things, environmental toxins.
Oh, like the triggers.
Triggers.
Okay.
Yeah. And then there's foods, which is like page 60.
Okay, perfect.
So go check it out. If you got the book, go look at it. And then tomorrow when we do that live, we'll be able to talk about it, and you could have that book in front of you, or
yeah, if you have questions, you can ask us.
You can ask us. Yeah, totally.
So it's also really important, so you're not speeding up the neurological process, to remove caffeine, because caffeine is going to spike your adrenaline, which then weakens the nerves and allows all of these toxic pathogens and things to take over. If you guys haven't listened to Anthony's podcast about caffeine, you have to listen to it. And then we also did a YouTube video about it where we talk about it and then bring in some more fun details and things like that. So check that out. I know it's a hard one to remove, but it really
makes a difference.
It's really important to remove it. And then stress is another big thing to try and remove from your daily life. I know that's not always easy because there's always different things going on in life that you can't always help, but trying to remove stress is really important because that also triggers adrenaline, just like caffeine.
Yeah. And then Anthony did a podcast on mold, and we'll talk about that one soon. I think that one's coming up.
That'll be on the list.
Yeah, we'll do another live on that one. But mold drops your immune system. And when your immune system is lower, viruses can cause more trouble. So that's another thing is you want to avoid mold. And it's hard to avoid mold because you don't know where it is. It's so sneaky.
Yep, totally.
And then another big thing that we need to do is, and I talked about this earlier, lower the fats, right? Because the fats interfere with the glucose, right? Because when these toxic heavy metals and the neurotoxins, they oxalate and rust, you need to prevent that from happening. You need antioxidants, antioxalates.
Which you'll get from glucose.
Which you'll get from a lot of fruit. And you bring in the fruit because your nerve cells need to be regenerated. And that's how you regenerate your nerve cells is fruit.
Yeah.
But if you have fats in your diet, that's thickening your blood. It's creating insulin resistance, and it's preventing the fruit from getting to these nerve cells.
Yeah.
And check out our fruit. We did a fruit fear YouTube video, and it talked a lot about the insulin resistance and the fats with the fruits.
We also have a video about lowering your fats.
We do. Oh, and we got fats in the bloodstream. Check that one out too, because fats in your bloodstream, it talks about how long these fats remain in the bloodstream before you can start to cleanse and heal again. So like pork stays in your bloodstream for like 14 to 16 hours.
Crazy.
So you can't cleanse, you can't heal because the fat is preventing the fruit from getting to the cells.
And your body can't absorb anything really. All the nutrients you eat after that, your body can't absorb it.
We'll talk more.
So yeah. But hey, did you guys hear what he said about herd immunity in the podcast?
Oh yeah, I did. I forgot about that. Yeah, so he was saying that what was it like? You know, if you think herd immunity is going to stop viruses and all these troublemakers from wreaking havoc, you might as well like go lick a toilet seat and not wash your hands, and then after you don't wash your hands and you lick that toilet seat, go
lick a doorknob,
eat a sandwich after, because if it's not happened to you yet, if you think herd immunity is going to prevent this virus from happening, you got another thing coming for you. So
it's all about protecting your immune system, keeping it strong, and that way it can fight off anything.
Because there's like people out there, right, that Anthony gives the example of the guy cooking an egg in front of his friend and having some bread with that egg, and then saying, hey, you want some of this bread? Oh yeah, you're gluten-free, I forgot, and that guy who's eating eggs and eating all that gluten and having all that dairy, I mean, it might not have hit him yet, but he's got viruses in his body. Everybody has viruses in their body, and it just hasn't gotten to the point where that virus has taken over, and it will eventually. There's going to be a lot of people sick out there eventually, and we're, Anthony's information is the information that's going to heal you, and people just need to be aware of this information, and then they can kind of make their own choice. But that guy eventually will get sick, and he'll get hit with his symptoms. And
it's like you, right? You were fine, right? We both were fine. eating whatever we wanted, doing whatever we wanted, but then all of a sudden it just hit you, boom, and you were just like on your deathbed.
Yeah.
Right? And unfortunately, that's what it kind of comes to, is when someone is in such an extreme case, then that's when they'll do whatever it takes to get better, right? Yeah. And we're so thankful we were led to this information.
But it shouldn't be when it eventually happens to you. You know, if you're smart and you're listening to this information now, you now have the information, so you can make the choice yourself. You don't have to wait till you get so sick that, you know, you're on the, like I said earlier, you're on the floor on your hands and knees praying to God every day that you're going to get through this and asking for relief. I mean, you don't need to, it doesn't need to get to that point. You guys have this information now. He's got, you know, 5-6 books out now. You know, read these books, get the information, and start to heal yourself like we did. You know?
Yeah. You know, that's why I jumped on it right away too with Ben. You know, I wasn't sick, but I was like, oh my gosh, I want to protect myself. Like, this is amazing information. And of course it was easier to like do it together and things like that. But there are a lot of couples out there where one person's doing it and the other one isn't. But yeah, I mean, I was like, I am all over this. I want to protect myself. So
cool.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's it. Let's leave it at that. And then tomorrow we'll jump on, and what we're going to do is talk to everybody about how to heal your neurological system. So we just explained how the nerves work and how the symptoms are tied to the nerves, and then what actually causes those symptoms in the first place.
Yeah.
And then tomorrow we'll give you guys different fruits and veggies and herbs and wild foods that you should be consuming that specifically help and heal the neurological system.
Totally. Let me just make sure there's no
questions. Oh yeah, let's see if we got any questions here.
Because we're on Instagram and YouTube, so we couldn't really watch everything. Alma says, have had spinal, brain, and chest nerve pain for over 10 years, 1 year on medical medium, and still have long ways to go. Nerves are stubborn. That's great that you're on the right track. Oops. And she also says, actually all started with the one I couldn't say, the pudendal nerve.
Yeah, so nerves are stubborn. Yeah, I mean, it takes a long time to heal your nerves, and the more things you can eliminate from your diet that causes the inflammation, the better you're going to feel, and the quicker you're going to be able to speed up the healing process.
Totally.
You know, we did a lot of the 28-day cleanse. We did a lot of liver cleansing, and that is a way to speed up the whole process, right?
Cleanses are great.
Not eating any fats until the evening time. That's what we do. We do our lemon water, celery, heavy metals. We don't consume any fats during that period. We then have salad for lunch, and we wait until dinner time, and maybe we'll have like some cashew sauce or something like that has a little fat in it.
Avocado. But maybe some oil.
Yeah, so the more you can eat, and check out our video. We did a video on what we eat on medical medium in a day, and kind of lay out how we eat and how it all worked and how we were able to heal. So
Elena says, thanks for all you do. Oh, thank you. Thanks for being here. And then Catherine says, you're a very inspiring couple. Thank you. We need more of you. Oh, thanks, Catherine.
Thanks, Catherine.
Then we have a couple on YouTube. Christine says, I tried everything. Glad I never gave up and found medical medium. I relate. Oh, that's awesome. Thanks, Christine. Tropical Vegan says, wow, I can relate. Christine is asking, wondering, did you have more brain issues when there were weather changes?
Interesting. Well, there's definitely like on rainy days or days that there's doing more spraying in the sky and stuff. You know, I deal with more
Yeah.
neurological issues on those days. And when I find when I'm in this, like when I'm going to town, like when we were up north, we'd go to the farmer's market and we'd sell our produce. Well, when we were selling our produce, we can't prevent people from coming up and buying from us that might have colognes or perfumes on. And, you know, unfortunately, you breathe that stuff in and you get headaches or migraines, stuff like that.
Big trigger.
And there's triggers everywhere. And it's hard to avoid a lot of these things. And that was I think that's what you're asking with the brain issue. But yeah, I, you know, definitely still deal with some neurological stuff, but they're more triggered
Like
from
the triggers,
things.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll have to think if the weather does it. Christine relates to the perfumes, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm even sensitive to perfumes and colognes.
But when it rains, you know, all the stuff they're spraying in the sky, you know, when it rains, all that stuff falls on
Right.
us.
Yeah, you have to be careful not to be letting that rain hit you too much, like wear a raincoat.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to be drenched in that. Okay, well, you guys, we're going to try and do a live tomorrow again to talk about how to heal the neurological symptoms. Keep your notifications on. We don't know what time yet, but I think that's all. So thanks, guys. This was fun.
Yeah, we'll see you tomorrow.